Okay, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to cover more detail on shooting cinematic footage with your Mavic Air. But many of these principles will apply to shooting great video footage with other DJI Quads as well. Just understand that your DJI Go 4 screens and your options you see may vary from what you'll be seeing in this video. For example, you're not going to see all the same options in the menu for your DJI Mavic Air as you'll see, for example, your Mavic Pro or Mavic Platinum. First, let me say much of this information in this video was gathered based upon the expertise and experience of those who are professionals or make a living shooting video and flying drones. For me, this is a hobby, but I'm learning something new every day. However, I'm hoping the information in this video will save you some time and provide you one-stop shopping for information you're looking for. You may even need to rewatch this video later to understand some of the information. Much of this didn't make sense to me the first time I came across it as well, so let's get into it. First, I do recommend some ND filters if you're looking to get the best cinematic footage possible. But I also wanted to clarify something regarding ND filters. Although many believe that an ND filter's sole purpose is to work as a pair of sunglasses for your quad, there is much more to it than that. Let me explain. An ND filter serves one purpose. It allows you to set the correct shutter speed that gives you the appropriate amount of motion blur in between each frame that allows you to create a cinematic look, which your eyes are accustomed to seeing. That's it. If this doesn't make sense to you now, that's okay. As you continue to shoot video, you'll hear about these things like motion blur and ND filters, and this will make more sense later. To further understand the use of ND filters, you'll also want to be familiar with something called the 180-degree shutter speed rule. The 180-degree shutter speed rule is basically this. When you're shooting video, you shoot with a shutter speed that's 1/2 times the frame rate. Or more simply stated, you should set the shutter speed to twice that of your frame rate. For example, when shooting at 25 frames per second, your shutter speed should be 1/50th of a second. If you're shooting at 30 frames per second, your shutter speed should be at 1/60th of a second. If you're shooting at 24 frames per second, shutter speed should be at 1/48th. The reason for this 180-degree rule is it establishes a video recording that contains what most would consider to be natural movement. In most cases, you want to set your ISO as low as possible, ideally 100. The reason for this is the higher you set your ISO, the more noise you get in the image. Again, you want the lowest ISO possible for the best cinematic footage. Next, adjust your shutter speed. But in many instances, to maintain the 180-degree shutter speed rule, you need to use an ND filter. Without an ND filter, your ISO will be much higher and you have more noise in the image. Because the Mavic Air has a fixed aperture setting of f2.8, the only adjustment we can make are to the ISO and the shutter speed. From everything I've seen and shot to date, your video will still look okay if you're adjusting your shutter speed to get the right exposure. But for that next level of cinematic footage, you'll want to start trying to apply the 180-degree shutter speed rule to give you the proper motion blur. If you don't have a lot of movement in your footage, then most of what I previously stated is irrelevant. An ND filter and the 180-degree shutter speed rule probably don't apply. So if you're shooting a subject on the ground and your drone is 400 feet in the air, the concept of how much motion blur you have per frame isn't really going to matter. So this whole topic is relevant to what your subject matter and what you're actually shooting. I make these videos not only for you, but for myself as well, so I can go back and look at them and reabsorb some of the information as it may be helpful to me later. Okay, now that all that's out of the way, let's get into the specifics and setting your Mavic Air within the DJI Go 4 app. First, launch the DJI Go 4 app, go to Settings, Advanced Settings, Sensitivity, Attitude 100, Brake 130, Yaw Endpoint 35. These settings will give you the desired level of control of your Mavic Air without appearing too harsh when making movements. Under Camera Gimbal, Advanced Settings, Max Gimbal Pitch equals 10 to 11. Gimbal Start, Stop Buffer equals 22. Then, under Intelligent Flight Mode icon, select Cinematic Mode This will further slow the movement of your aircraft for better cinematic video footage. More specifically, in cinematic mode, the braking distance for the aircraft is extended. The aircraft will slow gently until it stops, keeping the footage smooth and stable, even if the control inputs are choppy. Additionally, your Mavic Air will transition more slowly to full speed, even if you're full throttle on the stick. Next, in camera settings, always switch to manual mode. Move your ISO to the lowest possible setting and adjust your shutter speed, again following the 180 shutter speed rule. Apply ND filters as needed. Also, be sure to match the white balance to match the conditions outside. Cloudy and sunny often work best, but you can choose custom settings as well. And finally, if you're doing color editing, select D-CINELIKE, as it gives you the most flexibility in post-production. As I've discussed in previous videos, you also want to turn on your histogram. If you're not familiar with this tool, I'll give you the link here and you can check it out. It covers the histogram in a lot more detail. Turn on exposure warning. This will give you a white diagonal bars to show you where you may be overexposed. You can then dial down your shutter speed to apply a dark ND filter. And finally, you can enable your grid lines to follow the rule of thirds, as also discussed in one of my previous videos. I'll leave the link to that here as well. And before you go, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. If you feel I'm providing information of value and interest, I'm specifically asking because in just a few days, February 20th, 2018, YouTube changed their partnership program, which in short means I need to hit 1,000 subscribers in the next couple of days, and I'm only a few subscribers away for the minimum requirement. So if you would, please subscribe. That's it. The information in this video should give you the best cinematic settings for your Mavic Air, so feel free to come back and revisit this video. I hope you found this information helpful, and until next time, happy flying.